We are back. The market has just closed. It's all in the red. We have some interesting top gainers today, the likes of Kakuzi and Olympia Cement. Not too much trading there, mostly retail trades that happened. But in terms of our top movers on volume, Safaricom was up there as the day closed, getting ahead of ahead of EABL. We had 4 million shares that were traded, and Cobank had a last-minute trade that brought it to 1.66 million shares traded at 12.10 shillings. And we had Kenya Re, that was a surprising one, 803,000 shares traded at 3.78. Remember what happened last week? There was a corporate action that happened, and it went ex-bonus?
Yeah.
It was ex-bonus last week?
Ex-bonus, that's Kenya Re.
That's Kenya Re. It's now 3.78.
That means the price is...
The price is corrected?
That's a correction here, but
okay.
There's a downward trend on it.
There's a downward trend. The price we were looking at last week was about 4 shillings.
Yes.
4 shillings. So now it's actually correcting. And then the final update there was EABL. We had covered that earlier. 482,000 shares traded at 200 shillings. We shall be sharing more market statistics at the end of the show.
Something very interesting. It's the French stocks that are gaining.
Yes.
French stocks.
The French stocks.
The smaller caps. Kakuzi.
Kakuzi.
I'm going to buy Kakuzi.
I don't know.
Kapchorwa tea.
No, but what I've been seeing a lot of activity, Kakuzi, with some of the high net worth investors have been buying it.
It's predatory investing because I think they're eyeing the land.
They're eyeing the land, and maybe macadamia and avocado. Future, 3 years. 3 years, looking into the future.
I think I'm going to buy Olympia Capital.
You're going to buy Olympia Capital?
I think the stock has been doing very well.
I can see you changing the name of Olympia Capital the moment you get dominance. George Bordeaux Capital. But I
think in terms of asset allocation, which you actually need to, our viewers need to look forward to an asset allocation session this week. I think as asset managers, some of these French stocks, well, they are illiquid, but I think sometimes they deliver alpha.
They do?
Yeah. I think the focus usually is on the most liquid big stocks.
All right, interesting. So delivering alpha the French way. That's a good one.
Yeah.
So we're back on our conversation.
Yes.
For your benefit, we are discussing the dominance report and the upcoming Kenya Communications Bill. There's a proposal to actually split the money business from the telcos. That would impact Safaricom and Airtel. And then there's also an added proposal to regulate the different business lines. We were discussing that, and just before we took a break, George, you had started to delve on the regulatory impact on what this means for Safaricom or for the likes of Airtel.
Yeah, I think that last week I wrote an article about the vibrancy or the lack of thereof of vibrancy in the telecommunications sector. It's interesting to know that the telecommunications sector contribution to the GDP has been going down. As a share of GDP has been going down.
Oh, interesting.
Yes.
What is it now?
And also, I think we were talking about just, the figure was just under about 1% of GDP. And and then the second issue was that investment in the telecommunications sector has been, by the operators, has also been declining.
Oh, wow.
What does that tell you? It's time to open up the sector, bring in new players.
Okay. But where is it declining for? Because I know for Safaricom, it doesn't decline. It's always going up year on year.
No, the thing is that, it's in nominal terms, Safaricom's capex has been going up. But if collectively look at the industry, the investment as share of GDP, they're not catching up.
But then why should Safaricom be penalized because Airtel doesn't have a profitable
That's the point is that we need, because telco's contribution to GDP, the telco's role in the economy is that of, communication. Think about farmers trying to check on the prices of fertilizers on the phone. In an increasingly weightless economy, telco is such an integral part. And we need to see that they're investing, but part of the lack of investment, I could say, I need to be fair on the telcos.
Okay.
It's probably the markets, according to the market, has hit maturity.
I think for some of them, they've just not made money in this market or figured a way of how to make money. Because the opportunity is immense. We are only on 4G. There's 5G. The majority of us are on 3G and 2G. And the investments that have been made are up to 4G. So what are you saying about 5G? And let's not say that Huawei is no longer in existence.
The truth is that nobody wants to invest in telco sector in Kenya. The entry barriers are very high.
Which are?
Who wants to invest in the telco sector in Kenya?
Safaricom is investing and making money.
We're talking about new players. You don't think we need to have some more players, some vibrancy?
I don't know.
2 or 5, 2 or 3 or 4?
No, I don't see.
What if one day...
Unless you convince me that they're going to come and tell me, Mbithe, this is access to 5G, both at your home level and on your phone. and they make it cheaper for me so that I'm able to move from there, because you can't ignore the stickiness of Safaricom and M-Pesa. And it could be that that's the crown in the jewel that whoever is making these proposals wants to get to. Because in as much as I may have dropped calls or whatever happens, the reality is I'm on M-Pesa. I know better. It's not cheap. It's expensive. But then the convenience that M-Pesa gives me, that I'm able to do so many things at the same time without necessarily moving around, that's something that is worth appreciating. And they have worked hard to be able to develop that stickiness and loyalty. Should they be penalized for it?
I'm not saying they be penalized. I'm just saying that, are we okay with 2 telcos in this market? Is that it? That's so boring. Can we just bring more players, you know? I need to get another SIM card.
You need another SIM
card.
What
if Airtel and Telecom
How many phones are you going to end up carrying?
Well, they have the what do you call that, equity thing? They just stick on the back of your...
And you're sorted.
And you're sorted.
All right.
Yeah. So I don't need to have a dual SIM card.
All right.
But then you have a dual SIM card, right?
No, I don't. I'm a loyal consumer.
So
green is the color.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, interesting. Let's switch this up. I think I like the conversation when we started talking about infrastructure as a service.
Yeah.
But more importantly, how then does the separation of the mobile money from the telephony affect you as a Safaricom consumer? And what happens if now CBK gains oversight? Because we've seen CBK coming out, and we've had a lot of conversations saying that predatory lending has gone to the mobile phone. So all these apps, whether it's Fuliza, whether it's Timiza, whether it's Tala, whether it's Branch. And now there's the conversation, even as the bill was coming for discussion, the budget was coming for discussion under the finance bill, to actually increase regulatory oversight over that space. So are we, Safaricom has grown, the telecom sector has grown because of Big Brother. Do what you need to do, don't hurt anybody. So it's actually been an enabler. So now are we saying that Big Brother is like, no, stop? We want to start increasing oversight? Does that stifle innovation?
Yeah. So there are 2 issues I want to discuss that. Those are very interesting points. One is regulation, and the other thing is that, what do I see if M-Pesa is spun off from Safaricom? I see M-Pesa even acquiring a bank to go into the clearing house. M-Pesa needs to go to the clearing house and switch transactions, and they can't do that right now, the way it is. And we, for instance, in Zimbabwe, Econet Wireless, they have a bank to clear transactions, because look at the amount of money.
Did they acquire a bank, or did they get a license and start from?
They actually acquired a bank. It's called Stewart Bank. Do
you know the multiples that they acquired it for? Do you remember?
I can't remember.
Okay.
Maybe transaction done maybe 10 years ago.
Okay.
But they acquired a bank because they realized the next big thing for them is to go into the clearing house and clear payments. Because today, M-Pesa cannot clear payments. They've got through to a bank. They've got to go through CBA. They've got to go through KCB or even Equity to clear transactions. So I should be able to deposit huge volumes of money on M-Pesa platform, and without seemingly have to go through a bank. So I think the next big thing, if they spin off Safaricom, is they go to the clearing house, acquire a bank,
and then
open up the platform to other players. If they do that, then even the other telco, if the telco comes in, they'll just plug in into the wallet, and then they continue.
I would have said it makes sense to acquire the Kenyan banks, which are trading at below book.
And there are a lot of them.
And there are a lot of them. However,
by the way, NIC is trading at half the book
However, you have brought in a very interesting element. What more can be done in this market?
What's the next growth story?
The thing is, if you're telling me Safaricom then needs to separate its money business and partner with a global bank or a Pan-African bank, that makes perfect sense. Because the thing is, the touch points between me and you and the majority of us already on M-Pesa, the touch points are not that, they can't give us material incremental value in terms of shareholder value and unearthing any profitability.
Yeah.
But if you're telling me that then this spin-off, you could potentially see Vodacom or the government of Kenya come up with a structure where they get a Pan-African bank or a global bank that has a presence, especially in Africa, because Africa is technically underbanked, but everybody has a mobile phone.
Yeah.
Then that's a proposition that makes sense. But the question I keep asking is, it makes sense to who? And you're right when you say that this bill that is being discussed or is yet to be discussed in Parliament, it's very, very vague on structure.
It is.
So is there an opportunity to make money, or do you just keep your ear on the ground?
I think that maybe it's banking on the regulations. that will be issued by the authority.
Okay.
To provide more clarity, but at the moment, I mean, I've just gone through it. It's a short bill. It had a lot of vagueness. For instance, I was just saying before break that does it limit the parent company from having an ownership in the span of business? I think ideally, I don't think that because of the attachment that Safaricom has in Pesa, I don't think they want to. I think they want to have some oversight on it. And just talking about, actually, we're talking about something else. The regulation of mobile lenders. They need to be regulated. They need to be regulated, like yesterday.
Why?
They're too predatory. A lot of them are too predatory.
Demand and supply, George.
Yeah,
nobody asked you to take the money. You took the money because you need it.
Yeah, why would you go in my phone book and send messages to my uncle and my mother,
You have to decide whether it's a capitalist nation or you want a regulated nation where the state is the business and is the regulator. You can't have your cake and eat it.
No, I think the thing is that when I read the bill, the Treasury a couple of months back issued a bill, published a bill that potentially wanted to create the Financial Markets Conduct Authority. Well, I don't know where the bill is going to, but I thought it was a brilliant one, and to the extent that today there's no body, there's no institution in Kenya that handles financial disputes. Today, if you are aggrieved by your bank, Mbithe, where do you go?
To my mother. Lucky mom, bank so. Like, yeah, I hear you. I honestly.
If Tala aggrieves you, they've charged you so much.
Even Uber, like I'm on Uber Eats. That's the way we're moving with technology. Because you're going to get to a place because of there's artificial intelligence and there are machines and robots that are running this. So you have to get to a point where you just take ownership and responsibility for how these platforms work, get as much knowledge and make an information or a decision that's informed. Because you can't say that we need an oversight authority because we need everybody who's walking on the street to go and complain. There's a cost to that. Today, even your own deposits in the bank, they're secured up to 100,000 shillings. And then...
Oh, it's 1 million shillings.
It has increased. Sorry, now it has increased to 1 million. And then...
If you had 10 million shillings in the bank, you only get 1 million shillings.
Which is perfectly okay. But what I'm trying to say is, do you want to get into a space where you're saying the justification for regulation is so that people can have a call center for complaints?
No, I think dispute resolution my broad conversion is dispute resolution, which in my view is very important, especially in the financial services. One is that today, one of the things that makes financial services very hectic, especially on some of the processes and turnaround times. For instance, on issues like registering a charge on your property, it will take you 3 months. Because
will blockchain then help address that?
Yes, and robots who can do this.
So that's where we're headed, because you talked earlier about the opportunity of infrastructure as a service.
Yeah.
And I think earlier, was it a month ago, there was the whole Huduma registration.
Yeah.
And it got me thinking. Huduma registration is connecting all your touch points as an individual.
Yes.
To one server.
And to a single point.
To a single point.
Yes.
The merits or demerits of
which
that
which is brilliant in my view. Okay,
which is brilliant because when you look at it that way, the one thing that I appreciate that the government has done is just looking at infrastructure and putting the necessary investments for us to have technology that's top-notch. Because if that works and you connect all of these things, and then you have Safaricom, which has also invested capex year in, year out for the last 10 years.
To put up towers.
To put up
4G towers.
To give you access to the internet, to give you access to phones, to actually give you access to an e-commerce platform that you'd never would have had.
Yeah.
Then it makes sense if they're able to connect it to Huduma, right? If your Huduma can be connected into that or integrated into that, it makes sense. And you know why I'm saying that? Because the fact that Safaricom has dominance in Kenya does not negate the fact that companies like Facebook and WhatsApp have dominance globally.
Oh, Facebook has launched Libra.
Yes. So it doesn't negate that fact.
Is that good for dominance?
I don't know. That's why I keep saying on dominance. You see, if we look at it and say, our scope as Safaricom or our scope as investors in Kenya is relegated to the physical borders, that no longer works. This technology has to be competing to some extent. You want to give George the option of constantly use M-Pesa even though you're in Kenya. You don't want to give the option of use Facebook currency, or even WhatsApp, who's also thinking of launching their own currency. Yeah. Can they actually, the question is, can they go there? And I'll even come back and ask you. So today the headlines were the CTO, the Chief Technological Officer of Safaricom, has left after 7 years.
Yeah.
So this is a key role. I want to imagine
CTO at Safaricom.
You know, CTO anywhere.
It's a big role.
It's a big role.
Yeah.
So he and the CEO and the management and the Exco team have been responsible for delivering the new innovations that we've seen on M-Pesa. So if he's been there for 7 years, then are we wondering whether there's a risk factor in him leaving? You can't ignore the fact that, of course, he was working with the team, but then who's now going to hold that mandate?
I think I would be concerned if I was an investor in Safaricom. I would ask tough questions. What is especially around succession? Would you get someone some caliber? Does it disrupt services?
Exactly.
Does it disrupt innovation? Does it disrupt delivery?
For tomorrow.
For
Today
tomorrow?
I think it's okay for tomorrow, because we need to be able to see, and maybe one of the things that has not been very clear, and probably I've not been looking in the right places, is today when we're buying Safaricom, which is trading at 17.25 in terms of its trailing PE, which is cheap because it's come up from levels of 21. So it's a good stock, it's a cheap stock. There's continued demand on it. But the question is always, what are they doing next? It's never very clear. It's never very clear. Like, how are you tapping on your universe of M-Pesa users, of your voice call users, and what's the next thing?
I think they've tried a couple of things, Safaricom. They had the Safaricom tap. Remember the tap?
I still have the card.
You have the card?
I don't know where
I took the wristband.
Is it?
They had a wristband.
Have you used it?
Very cool wristband. Well, I didn't use it.
Okay. All right.
The
So
CEO admitted that it failed.
All right.
Yeah, I was at the briefing last month, and he admitted it failed. I think they went back to the drawing board. They had Masoko. Masoko. Have you bought anything with Masoko?
No.
Masoko.
No, I haven't.
Masoko. I can just say Soko.
Okay, but in all honesty, at times I use it. I'm not too sure if I trust the products on it, but I use their price points as a reference point when I go to a physical shop. I need to probably buy something off it.
When you go to Toy?
No, when I go to the Safaricom shop to buy an iPhone.
Masoko.
Masoko. So yes, so Masoko, what else is there? Because it's not, so we keep saying that Safaricom has the technological platform, and therefore a 17.25 times PE is justified. But the question is, for how long is this justified for? Yeah,
I think you raise a very fundamental question, is what's the next growth story for Safaricom? Fine, I mean, I'm over, I can pay my utility bills, I can deposit money in my bank account on my phone. Yeah, but what's the next thing? The next thing for me, I think, in this market is tap and go.
Tap and go.
Tap and go.
Tap and go.
Yeah.
How do we make it happen?
Have you been to supermarkets of late? Carrefour? You know, I think Taskis. I think they still require you to enter your, take in the pay bill, the TIN number. Then they ask you, what's your phone number? 0722. They tap it, they give you the receipt. I think that's so 2000. Why can't I just tap and go?
Just tap and go.
Tap and go.
Yeah. Wow. So maybe
the receipt
it's
will meet on the way.
Then what we are all agreeing is this. We're saying that Safaricom is in a good place.
Yeah.
It has the stickiness of its holders, largely because of M-Pesa. The question for us we need to answer, and maybe we will be having an analyst to help us answer this during the week. But we need to go a step further and get Safaricom to come and speak to us, just to help us demystify. Okay, beyond M-Pesa and the loyalty we have on M-Pesa, for this audience, who are all the users of Safaricom products, what next?
That's true.
So that we can be able to say that, yes, 17.25 times PE is actually cheap. This thing could go to maybe 25.
Yeah, what's going to drive it to 25?
What's going to drive it to 25?
What's going to drive it to 25? What's that story?
What's going to drive it to a 25 PE?
Yeah. But I think I have two issues with the telecom sector, the sector the way it is. One, I think they need to deepen infrastructure sharing, right? In the voice market especially. They're already doing, and to be fair, telcos are already doing this, the providers are still already sharing services on the data side. They buy each other's redundancy, such that if you're on Ngong Road and the Chinese were digging and they cut my cable, and if I'm Safaricom, then I reroute my traffic to Telecom, which is on the other side of the road. So they're already sharing, on the data side, they're already sharing redundancies. They're buying each other's redundancies. But I need to see that sharing on the voice market, Because today Safaricom has the largest coverage in terms of the tower market. Actually, they don't call it dominance. They use a very nice term, significant market power, SMP.
Significant market power.
Yeah,
wow.
In bracket, SMP. Significant market power. That's the terminology. It's just dominance.
It's just dominance.
It's just dominance.
It's just a pretty word for...
Yeah, so they're saying that Safaricom has SMP in the towers market. And so they've suggested, you know, for instance, say Telecom has a very strong network in Nairobi.
Yes.
But what if I move to Gilgil? And, you know, I have to keep looking for the signals. I can't find it. I've got to go up, you know,
yes.
top of the building.
Okay.
But on the other side, Safaricom has a strong. So the Telecom has to ask Safaricom that if my subscriber is in Gilgil, can you please acquire that call?
And then route and I'll pay you for that.
Yes.
Okay.
And that needs to be a discussion that they need to further as telcos. The regulator is trying to come, and one of the things in the bill, Kenya Information Communications Bill 2019, is the establishment, well, not the establishment, it's a redefinition of the Universal Service Fund. So they've got the Universal Service Fund that is funded, actually it's funded from the telco business. I think each telco has to contribute a certain portion of their revenues that goes into Universal Service Fund. And the Universal Service Fund has been used to put up some masts in, let's say, if you go to Marsabit. So they all share. They all share. Okay. It's a little way of trying to force them to share service.
Okay.
But I think there needs to be a more definite, a more profound way, a more robust way of they can share towers in the voice business. The second issue is, you know, they're now sharing the SIM card. That interoperability of the SIM card. I can send you money without restrictions. Yes. I can send Airtel money.
It is.
I can send from my Safaricom, I can send Airtel without those many restrictions.
It is.
But I think it's not going to make sense if they don't connect the agents. What I mean by that is, if I am Airtel and I have an Airtel wallet and I want to withdraw money, I should not be restricted to go into an Airtel agent. Mm-hmm. I can just walk into a Safaricom agent and I cash out. Now, what they need to have is a strong back office where they have an inter-telco settlement. And they can do it. They can sit down and say, okay, fine. Airtel, how much of my money have you dispensed? Safaricom, how much of money have you?
And then you can be able to just...
And then we settle.
Yes.
We sit down and we have a clear... That's sort of a clearing house, a mini clearing house. They sit down and say, okay, fine. This is how much you owe me. You don't owe me X. So we net off. And they can do it, and that they can actually charge each other a service. For every service that I accessed, every of my service, every acquisition I've done, every customer I've acquired,
that you can actually charge and pay for it. So then it becomes another way of maybe just earning revenue for the telco. So in a way, so that what are we saying? We're saying there's the element of the communication authority fighting for the quality of service, or at least improved quality of service, which is justified. And it's necessary, because you really do not want to have the same service and products 5 years from today. Yeah. You don't want to go to elections in 2022 and you have the same issues you had, calls dropping or not being, you don't want to have the same issues come then. So there's the element of regulatory oversight, which is consumer protection, that I completely agree with it, and it must be done. Maybe the fact that this bill is coming through, if you're going to pay 10 million for not doing what you need to do, for some of these telcos, it's neither here nor there. So maybe it needs to be punitive. Some of these proposals need to be punitive.
I think the bill has a punitive proposal.
Yes.
Every drop call you pay 10
shillings? Yes, that one for 10 shillings. That's a punitive one. That's a punitive one. Here's the other question. When we're looking at circling in on this bill, I keep asking, and I will ask this again for us, the political undertones. Because from a legislative perspective, what typically happens is you have your mother industry, your mother ministry. Your aligning ministry, then when it engages different stakeholders and comes up with proposals and gets somebody to sponsor it in parliament, that one sort of normally has a higher success rate. typically, like what the Treasury did. So the Treasury will come up with its finance bill. This is what we need to operationalize the government's budget. Then they will get, it goes through the different committees, but then they're the sponsor of it. So typically such bills are able to get to the third reading and the committee stage and the third reading where the parliamentarians debate and add their comments and deduct the comments that they do not want. That one normally has a higher chance of seeing the light of day. Now for this one that has come through the GEM MP, the question is, who's actually pushing this bill? Because it seems like it's a bit contradictory to the stance that we have seen from the Ministry of ICT, which has been more or less quiet on, it says we acknowledge the report. But to date, we haven't seen a formal report that's out. The conversation is, we're almost getting to the final report. It has been made public. They've had a couple of public forums. So I don't see it getting maybe the light of day now. I don't dispute that what they're saying is material. It's going to happen. One day this split it's imminent. It has to happen. You know, we have to start talking about the quality of service. We have to start focusing on ex ante and ex post regulatory impact on the industry. I don't see it happening today. And it's, I think, a very important thing to note, because the question you're asking today is, if I'm in the market and Safaricom is at 27, 28 range, is there still value? And do these risk factors then move it from 27 back to 21? I don't think so. Do you know why, George?
Why?
Do you know what also happened today? The Lyra is the best performing stock. With the surprise, yes, the surprise of a political vote. It has become the best stock, right?
Really?
Yes, hear me out. It's the best stock, it's not the best stock, it's the best currency to date because of the outcome from the political end, from the elections. Secondly, Nigeria has also come out and said that the economy is not doing very well. And I think it's important for us to find a way to link the global news to the local news, because from a technical perspective, if the US is going to start cutting rates and we expect to see foreign inflows into the emerging markets, which we discussed in the morning, then you want to say that Safaricom will be top of mind for any investor. So that these risks that we are discussing are not as apparent, and you don't expect to move from 27 shillings to closer to 20 shillings. It looks like we need to start closing the show. I would like to hear your closing comments on this grand discussion that needs to absolutely continue.
Telcos share infrastructure. The financial services have done the best job in showing the way in terms of how you share infrastructure. Telcos need to share infrastructure. The Communications Authority, which is the regulatory body for telco sector, needs to reduce the entry barriers. The entry barriers in this market are so high. Nobody wants to invest in this market. Not even the tower companies. They don't want to deepen their presence in the market. The vibrancy of the market needs to be elevated. And I think that bill, my view is that it will likely probably pass out of Parliament. Maybe the President may not sign it. There's a chance that he may not sign it. Yeah. Okay,
interesting. So I concur with you, and I think for my end, Safaricom trading at 17.25 in terms of its trailing PE at a price of 27.28. I don't see any risks, material risks associated with this. I would certainly pay attention to who's sponsoring this bill and who's behind it.
Yeah.
If I was to hear the Ministry of ICT beginning to speak about dominance and saying that it's a potential threat to the growth of the sector, I would pay considerable attention. But because I haven't had that undertone yet, I would look at it, but it wouldn't be something that would change my view, which is by Safaricom at this point in time.
It's significant market power, not dominance.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. That's what we have for you for today. We're looking at dominance. Dominance will certainly not be good for the growth of the sector, but we'll still be continuing to see some upside on Safaricom as a stock. Whether this telecommunication bill sees the light of day, we will keep you posted on that as we keep our ears on the ground. Have a good afternoon.